Let me ask you a question. Why on earth would anyone spend months of time, energy, and garden space growing what is arguably the garden's ugliest duckling? I mean, if you've ever seen root celery, also known as celeriac, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's this knobby, strange-looking, almost alien root. But as we're going to see today, beneath that rough, tangled exterior lies an absolute culinary powerhouse that chefs and master gardeners actually prize above almost everything else in the autumn garden. So welcome to this explainer. Mastering root celery from seed to table. Today, we're tracing the entire fascinating journey of this incredibly demanding plant. We're going to start with its notoriously stubborn seeds and navigate all the highly specific cultivation rules you need to follow to transform this tricky vegetable into a culinary treasure right in your own backyard. Now, what's really interesting is just how versatile and healthy celeriac actually is. It's not just an ugly root, it's practically a medicine cabinet. Every single stalk and root packs around 25 different anti-inflammatory compounds. It acts as a powerful natural diuretic, a digestion aid, and it even contains a specific hormone called androstenone, which makes it a recognized natural aphrodisiac. Plus, it's so rich in natural sodium compounds that if you make a celeriac puree or salad, you barely even need to add table salt. All of this proves exactly why putting up with this tricky plant is absolutely worth your time. To get us there, here's our roadmap. We'll introduce the plant, prepare the soil, and tackle those seeds. Then we'll cover maintenance, troubleshoot problems, and wrap up with the harvest. Section 1, Introduction to root celery, the biennial powerhouse. Let's briefly look at what makes this plant biologically unique. So, scientifically speaking, root celery, or Apium graveolens variety rapaceum, is a biennial plant. That means its complete life cycle actually takes a full 2 years to produce seeds. But for our purposes in the garden, we grow it as an annual because we want to harvest that glorious swollen taproot in the very first year. It's a moisture-loving plant that's incredibly rich in essential oils, and as you'll see, those oils are both its greatest superpower and its biggest vulnerability. Section 2, Preparing for planting, setting the stage for success. Let's move to the prep phase and see how a perfect environment builds the foundation for a great harvest. Okay, root celery is famously demanding. First off, it's highly sensitive to light. If it gets shaded out, the leaves stretch, the root stays tiny, and those precious essential oils drop dramatically. It thrives best in cool weather, right in that 18 to 20 degrees Celsius sweet spot. You're going to need deep, well-drained, sandy loam soil that's packed with humus. But here is the most critical warning I can give you. Never, ever use fresh, unrotted manure. Fresh manure will not only deform and rot your precious roots, but it acts like an absolute magnet for devastating pests. So the trick is balancing these massive nutritional needs without exhausting your soil. Because root celery is such a heavy feeder, crop rotation isn't just a suggestion, it's mandatory. You've got to wait 3 to 4 years before planting it in the exact same spot to prevent pathogen buildup. Your absolute best strategy, plant it in a bed that was heavily fertilized with well-rotted organic matter the previous year. So following crops like tomatoes, peppers, or cucumbers is absolutely perfect. Section 3, Seeds and Seedlings, the 70-80-day journey. Now for the trickiest part of the whole process, getting those incredibly stubborn seeds to actually germinate. Root celery seeds are notorious. They're wrapped in this thick coat of essential oils that basically acts like a waterproof jacket. If you just toss them in the dirt, it could take a month for moisture to finally break through. So here's how we outsmart the seed. You literally dip them in hot water for just 1 to 2 seconds. This flash soak strips away that oily jacket. Then let them rest at room temperature for about 10 days to pre-sprout before you sow them extremely shallowly. I'm talking no more than half a centimeter deep. 22. Once they're in the soil, temperature control is everything, and 22 degrees Celsius is your absolute magic number for optimal germination. These seeds need warmth and constant moisture. Whatever you do, do not let the temperature drop below 10 degrees. If it gets that cold, the plants will think they've just survived winter and might prematurely try to flower instead of building that big root. The journey from seed to field takes some serious patience. It's a long 70 to 80-day wait before these plants are finally ready for the outdoor garden. Around day 25, when they have 2 to 3 true leaves, you'll need to prick them out to give them more space. And by late May or early June, roughly around day 75, they're finally robust enough to face the elements outdoors. Section 4, Cultivation and Maintenance. Once they're in the ground, the real work begins, and the rules completely change compared to regular stalk celery. There's a stark contrast to keep in mind here.
If you've grown stalk celery, you know you have to earth it up, mounding soil around it to block the sun and blanch the stems white. With root celery, you do the exact opposite. You never earth it up. Actually, as the root swells, you intentionally pull the dirt away from the top of the root. This forces it to grow above the ground, giving you a smooth, beautiful bulb rather than a hairy, misshapen mess. Earthing up root celery is a common rookie mistake that you absolutely must avoid. Because the roots of Celeriac are incredibly shallow, any weeding or hoeing you do must be gentle, no deeper than 5 to 6 centimeters, or you'll destroy the plant. When you first transplant them, it helps to trim about a third of the root to stimulate growth. But make sure the apical bud, the growing tip, stays completely above the soil line to prevent rot. Also, consistent watering is non-negotiable. Using a drip irrigation system every 6 to 7 days is ideal, because it keeps the soil moist without splashing the leaves. Finally, keep a close eye on your soil nutrition, particularly boron, magnesium, and calcium, to prevent hollow or cracked roots.
Section 5. Troubleshooting common problems. Even with perfect prep, things can go wrong out in the wild. Let's look at how to protect our ugly ducklings. When it comes to pests and disease, absolute prevention is your best weapon. The carrot fly is a massive threat. It's drawn from miles away by those strong-smelling essential oils we talked about. That's exactly why we avoid fresh manure. It acts like a beacon for them. For diseases, septorial leaf spot is a fungal nightmare showing up as grayish spots with black dots. Avoid overhead sprinkler irrigation to stop those spores from splashing around. And if it does hit, treat it with an approved fungicide like Artiva Top. Finally, infectious jaundice is a fatal virus spread by aphids. If you see yellowing, dying veins, there's no cure. You have to immediately pull and burn the infected plants to save the rest of your crop.
Section 6. Harvesting and storage. This brings us to the most rewarding part of this explainer: pulling that massive, fragrant root out of the ground.
My biggest piece of advice here? Hold your nerve. It is so tempting to pull them up in September, but don't rush it. The taproot actually grows most intensively during the crisp, cool days and chilly nights of late autumn. You want to wait until late October or even early November, timing it just before the surface of the soil actually freezes over.
When that perfect crisp day arrives, follow these exact steps to ensure your harvest survives the winter in storage. Dig them up very carefully. Any scratch or mechanical damage will drastically shorten their shelf life. Take a sharp knife and cut all those thick, hairy lateral roots totally flush to the base of the bulb. Next, trim the leaves entirely off. Do not leave little stalks pointing up, because they just act as funnels for rot. Finally, let the roots air dry on the soil for a few hours to callus over before you move them into your cool, dark root cellar.
Before we wrap up, a quick professional note. The information provided in this explainer serves as general agricultural guidance based on the shared sources. Gardening always requires adapting to your own unique microclimate, your soil pH, and your local weather. Individual garden conditions and results will vary, so always proceed with caution and definitely consult your local agronomic resources when applying these practices. And that brings us to the end of our journey. You now know exactly how to conquer the demanding seed, navigate the strict watering rules, and properly coax that massive, flavor-packed root out of the autumn soil. So I leave you with this final thought. Now that you know the secrets, how will you cook your first homegrown harvest of the garden's ugliest duckling? Will it be a rich, velvety puree, a slow-cooked winter stew? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and happy growing!